Ah, hi. Sorry for the quick toggling right now. I got my hotkeys mixed up. Anyhow, hello and welcome to this first broadcast of 2018. It's very much delayed. I'm sorry for that. In any case, Happy New Year. Huge apologies for not getting around to doing one sooner. The problem was that I got yet another visit from the flu of doom in January and spent a couple of weeks sneezing my guts out again. So, and after that I was very busy trying to catch up on everything on my to-do list, because the combination of just having returned from an overdue vacation plus then being sick again was not good for getting any tasks tackled in a timely manner, and so that took a while to catch up on. Well, to be honest, by now I'm just hoping that the winter will finally be over soon, so that maybe whatever is making the rounds here in Germany, which is, by the way, making a lot of people very sick, will soon die and leave us all alone again, and so that the whole country can get back to not sneezing. Well, as usually, a quick outline of what we'll talk about today. It's basically the usual stuff, so I'll tell you what I've been up to, what I'm going to do next, and we'll also have a Q&A segment in probably something like the second half of the stream. And now I'm hearing myself talking somewhere here. Apologies for that. So, just in case that you heard that, I thought I had set everything to mute, but apparently I didn't. Okay. Where was I? Right. As always, for those of you watching this live, there's a live chat. On mobile, it should be below, and on the desktop, it should be... No, wait. Over there, I think. No, over there. Over there, yeah. Okay. I will keep an eye on that as usual, so feel free to ask any questions that should also maybe be tackled during the Q&A segment. Or in general, if you have anything to add, so to speak. Okay, so what I've been up to, as I already mentioned, mostly sneezing. Also a bit of coughing. No, that wasn't the only stuff that I did, thankfully. Before that, since the last broadcast that I did, I was, as I said, I went on an overdue vacation. And right in the middle of that, I also did a visit to the Chaos Communication Congress in Leipzig, just like I announced. Was a really great time. I also met a couple of people there, shook a couple of hands, gave away some stickers and all that. And I also hope to be there again this year for the 35th iteration of it. So, just as a quick for your interest, basically. Yeah. Once I returned, and during the time that I was not down sick again, I spent, most of my time basically on working through the backlog of tickets and emails and mailing list posts and whatnot. So basically everything that had accumulated over the time that ate hilarious amounts of time. And I also thankfully found the time to fix a couple of bugs in 136 and ironed out some kinks here and there, implemented also some small improvements, and all that allowed me to by now basically prepare 137 RC1. And I'm happy to say that now I only have some final tests that I still need to do, mostly stuff on my personal release checklist, like testing some update scenarios and all that, and then this can be released for people to test, so that we hopefully will soon also see a full stable 137 release. And I actually hope I will be able to do that early next week. I was hoping for Monday, but I don't know what the weekend will bring, so let's see. And what I also did, and what I hope all of you already saw, is I finally set up a community forum. So the past years, OctoPrint had both a mailing list and a Google Plus community. Those were official, and then there's also a ton of unofficial Facebook groups and subreddit stuff and whatnot. And the problem was that people were seeking help basically all over the place, and trying to find answers made this very tricky, because something might have been answered in one place but not the other, and then if you basically duplicated the question again by asking it in the other place and all that, and between that and having to constantly monitor at least the 2 official support channels, and trying to keep them moderated and all that really added a lot of overhead to my daily work. And so for a long time now, I've been meaning to set up a central consolidated platform for getting help for the FAQ, for everything that basically everything that concerns OctoPrint, where for people to exchange thoughts and ideas and suggestions and hints to each other, help each other and all that. And this is why I wanted a central community forum for a long time now, and thankfully now finally I have one. And the plan is that this will basically be the only official forum, mailing list, whatever thing in the future, and the only official support channel basically. So if you have a problem, go there. I'm of course also monitoring it, but there are also a lot of other people on there now, and I hope that will only that crowd will only grow in the future. So the hope is basically that all of you will, on this new platform, find it easy and actually hopefully even fun to help each other with problems. And if I see something to be asked very often and all that, then it's now like one click or something to turn it into an FAQ item as well. So the hope is really that this will put a lot of support overhead and moderation overhead off my shoulders, while allowing everyone to quickly find whatever they are looking for, and basically have an easier life when running into problems and all that. So and as I already mentioned, I also integrated the FAQ into that. So far that was only a one page in the wiki on GitHub, and managing it turned quite ugly and tricky, because it was this huge wiki page and wasn't very fun, and also no built-in search or anything, so you always had to scroll through the whole page, or at least use your in-browser search or something like that in the hopes that you would find it. And all this is now better with the forum as well, which is, by the way, powered by Discourse. And a huge thanks to the people at discourse.org, because they are sponsoring the hosting of this board. So I don't have any additional administrative work with it or anything. They do backups, they do updates and all that, and they are basically sponsoring all that for OctoPrint, since it's an open source project, and can really I'm missing my English words right now, sorry, can really profit a lot from a good community forum. So they have this nice offering for open source projects that you can apply to, and then they take a look at your project, and if they think it's good enough, basically, then you get a forum, and hey, we qualified, yay! So I'm really happy about this development, and I really hope that in the future it will help a lot, everyone, basically. Oh, and I forgot to say that I also integrated it with the Octoblog. So you can now comment on the Octoblog, apart from the latest post, because for whatever reason this is currently throwing an error in the comment engine, and I already wrote a mail to the support guys, but so far I haven't heard back. So whatever that problem is will soon hopefully also be ironed out. But in any case, in the future you will also be able to write comments on the blog post, which I think is good, because right now, in the past, it was also usually ended up in comments spread all over social media and all that, and then I again had to try to consolidate them, and now this is also easier. And speaking of the latest blog post, I hope you also hopefully have seen this by now, because I found, while working towards 1.3.6, I found a security vulnerability in OctoPrint, and I patched it silently and sneakily in 1.3.6 and pushed this update. And now, after over 90 days have gone by, I decided to do an announcement to please update if you haven't yet updated, because the 1.3.6 fixes, as I said, fixes this vulnerability, and you should really update your OctoPrint instance if you haven't yet because of that. I'm not going to go into any details on this vulnerability, what it is specifically and all that. What I can say you can find in the blog post, and basically I don't want to put anyone at risk who hasn't updated yet, so I'm keeping zip there. All right, so what are the next steps? As I already mentioned, I've been finalizing 1.3.7 RC1, and I really hope to be able to get this out early next week. Also, I got my Raspberry Pi 3 Plus yesterday, and I haven't even powered it on yet. But what I also want, of course, is take a look at the current OctoPi nightlies that Guy prepared right when the release hit of this new Pi, and take a look if anything is missing, if everything is working fine, and so basically also support him in testing this, so that we can hopefully soon also put out a first release candidate for OctoPi 0.15. And I'll also return to finalizing the granular permission system that Salendora started a couple of months ago as in form of a pull request. This was on the back burner for a bit because we hit a bit of a kink in the middle of things due to a potential licensing issue that Salendora stumbled upon. And I had to wait for clarification on this, but everything is good now, everything is fine, and we can proceed with what we have already. And I'll, of course, also, especially over the next couple of weeks, keep a very close eye on the forum and see what people ask, try to get an idea of what might still be missing with regards to categories and such, and basically just like everyone else, try to learn how to use it, and and try to figure out how we can best utilize it for the OctoPrint community. Yeah. And of course, the usual madness. I mean, maintenance and development and all that. So back to the usual daily work. I guess just Okay, so that was the next steps, which brings me already to the Q&A. I was a bit fast today. I guess that I was on vacation and sick, or mostly sick actually. The vacation wasn't that long actually, but it's noticeable that I mostly played catch up the past month instead of actually moving a lot of stuff forward. Sorry for that. Such is life, I think. Everything will be better from now on. So first question by John is, do you ever find yourself wanting to scrap a whole bit of code to rewrite it from scratch instead of fixing an old part that's looking a lot like spaghetti? How often and what do you actually do when that happens? So this is something that happens way often and I'd prefer to. And what I do when I get this urge is that it entirely depends on the situation, because usually I simply don't have the time to actually give into this urge to rewrite, to scrap a whole component and rewrite it from scratch. And an additional problem is that I also always have to keep backwards compatibility in mind. This is a tricky word today for me, sorry. Because if I scrap some component in OctoPrint and rewrite it from scratch that plugins are using for anything, then either I have to keep the API stable, or break backwards compatibility. And keeping an API completely stable while rewriting everything, might not always be possible, because if you have to change something so extremely because it's currently architecturally unsound or something like that, then it becomes tricky. So it's usually either time constraints or the fact that I have to remain compatible to former versions that simply don't allow me to do this. But when it's something smaller or something undocumented so far, then I do this when I can fit it in somehow, because one general rule when developing software, of course, is always, if you see something that sucks right now, try to make it better, because otherwise it will continue to suck and you will have to continue to work around it, and it will only cost you more time in the future. Usually a heavy refactoring, or maybe if push comes to shove, even a full-blown rewrite can save you a lot of time, even though it doesn't seem like it from the beginning. But of course it always depends on the situation, and you have to think about it long and hard. One thing that really causes this oh my god, I have to scrap and rewrite it right now is the COM layer, as you might have already guessed. This is also why I'm scrapping and rewriting it, even though it's taking me ages. And this is already something that's causing me a lot of pain with regards to compatibility questions and all that. But I somehow figure it out. I'm not sure yet how, but I'll somehow figure it out. So in a nutshell, I do this. I do get these urges. I have to think long and hard about whether to give in to them or not. Most often I pull the short straw and have to come to the conclusion that I can't give into it and have to live with it for a while longer, simply because the constraints do not allow a rewrite. This doesn't make me happy, but it keeps the project running, basically, because if I were to actually scrap and rewrite everything that bothers me in various places in OctoPrint, I would probably not get any release out for a year or something. So I don't know if people want that. So I'll try to do the iterative approach with regards to improving the code base. Stupid bit road. Okay. Next question by Martin is, how do you work with usability in the daily work, and how do I as a newbie contribute my thoughts, experiences, feedback to you? Do you hire in UX designers for reviews, or have other free human resources you use for UX? So first of all, I don't have any hired or free resources that I can use for, basically that I can throw something over the fence to when I design something, when I have to think about some new dialogue or something like that. So basically, whenever I have to tackle stuff with regards to user experience, I always just wing it and hope that it's that my idea of, okay, this works like this matches a lot of other ideas of that, and if not, then I hope that people will just give me feedback when something completely sucks and is completely unusable. Ideally with not only with an this is stupid like it is, but also with and maybe we could make it better by, like with a suggestion, and even better also with a pull request actually attached to make it better. So the thing is that I definitely do depend on external feedback for making the user experience better, because I can't afford basically hiring a full-featured UX designer to take a look and make suggestions. And also, I'm not sure if that the turnaround would work in a timely manner in that case, or it would be extremely expensive. So, so the feedback. The places where I look for feedback like this, so it's usually just GitHub feature requests or requests in this case rather, like, can we make this scroll bar a bit wider, or can we maybe make this button a bit bigger or something like that. We've had things like this in the past, and I've tried to accommodate them when they made sense, and otherwise we discussed things then. And I've also let myself let myself get convinced. So, yeah. And also, I think I also had 1 or 2 discussions about stuff like that in the past on the mailing list or the G+ communities. But in the future, the best place would probably be the forum, the new forum. The nice thing about that is also that we really could brainstorm about things with screenshots and whatnot there, which is a bit tricky on a mailing list, and yeah. So just feel free to, when you see something that doesn't work that great, just feel free to open a topic or open a feature request basically, and then we can take it from there and see. Just the only thing really that I do not want is people opening tickets and such that go like, this sucks, this is so stupid, how can anyone, like this slightly aggressive aggressive approach to criticism is something that I have to admit I'm somewhat allergic to. But if you have constructive criticism of any kind, with ideally, as I said, with suggestions on how to make it better, because so when you have that, then go ahead, just get in touch. The thing is really that the only thing that can help here is constructive criticism with suggestions, with an openness to discussion and all that, because if all that you do is say something is like it is now sucks, then it doesn't really help in improving it. It only makes the person who implemented it feel bad, And I'm sorry, apologies. As I said, I still don't have this stupid code stuff here completely out of my system, and this was just what was I saying? Right. So if you have an idea on how to make something better, please step forward. I'm always open to that. The only thing that I don't want is people just saying something sucks without trying to help to make it better, because this is not helping anyone. Yeah. Okay. I'm now going to step off my soapbox again. Sorry. Okay. The next question is from Bill, who asks, what are the plans for finer access control for users? I would like to give customers access to the webcam and progress info, but need to prevent any meddling. It would be nice to hide most of the GUI for viewer-only use, especially files. So I earlier, when I was talking about what I was going to do next, I already mentioned this granular permission system PR that was opened by Sal and Dora, and that we then collaborated together on. And this is basically what's going to be merged into OctoPrint 1.4.0, into the Devil branch. So this is what will be. This is something that will be one major feature to be released with 1.4.0. And I have to check what exactly, but there was only some minor things missing now. Some small kinks to iron out first, and then we can merge it. I thought that it might maybe be interesting to just show you how this stuff will work in the future, and so I prepared a quick demo on my development machine here. I just have to quickly switch over to my screen here, and then I can show you. So basically what you're seeing here is the current OctoPrint 1.4.0 build in the permission branch, and I'm sorry, I have to cough again. Okay, does look fairly usual. What has changed tremendously though is the access control tab in the settings. We now have 2 subtabs here, users and groups. and you can already see that you have you can assign users to groups here. So admin is part of the admin group. The user test is a special group. Only in the special group the user is in special users. You can also assign specific permissions to additional permissions to a user, and this is a whole ton of stuff. And as you can see, you can also be expanded by plugins, so plugins can define their own permissions. And all of this can also be done for groups, so you can create new groups here and also delete existing ones and give certain permissions to groups. So for example, what you see here is that guest users, this is one of the default groups, and I still need to highlight that somehow. Right now it's only visible because you can't delete it. Guest users, so anyone not currently logged into OctoPrint basically right now have no permissions at all, and you will see in a second what this will cause. And also take a look at the special group, which I modified earlier and which has status and webcam, so basically can see the status of a print and temperature and all that, and also can see the webcam stream but nothing else. So what we're going to do now is log out. So now we are a guest user, and you see, boom, everything is gone. And then we will log in as a test user who was in the special group, and you see they can see the state, the status information. They can also load the webcam and see also the temperature, but nothing else, because we only allowed status, so temperature, state here, and webcam permissions. We did not give any other permissions to this group. If I now log back in as my admin user, we can also, there I was, we could change the special group and also maybe give them control, which, as it's written here, also includes the terminal permission. The permission modeling is still something I need to take a closer look at if it really makes sense as it is right now. But yeah, for example, that terminal is part of control is something that I still want to take a look at. But in any, yeah, why do I click abort when I want to click confirm? Okay, and now we see it's updated, control, status, webcam, and now we again log out, log in as user test. And now we also have the control buttons are down here, and the terminal and the temperature and such. And of course, what we can also do if we want things for guest users to be a bit more interesting, like it is now, we can at least give them the status permission, and I hope that was the right one. It's been a while since I tried that. Yeah, okay, so this is still a bug. This shouldn't happen, but in theory they would now at least, yeah, they would also only get the basic status, basic print status and all that, and nothing else. So way more granular permission system, lots more control over who can do what and all that. And I hope that that will help a lot in doing such things as asked in this question, because yeah, as you saw, it's trivial then. What I have to say here is that the webcam itself, so as you know, in OctoPrint the webcam stream is not served by OctoPrint itself, but OctoPrint just gets an URL to an external webcam server which it embeds in here. And that of course means that OctoPrint has no way to restrict access to this webcam stream. So this is something that this access control does not solve. If you don't want people to access your webcam, you still have to somehow protect it additionally. I have an idea on how to solve this actually, but I haven't yet gotten around to experimenting with that, and so I don't want to promise anything right now. But for now, just keep in mind everything in OctoPrint will be that OctoPrint actually controls will be protected through this new permission system. So even the endpoints, even the push messages that the server pushes to the client will be limited to what the client is allowed to see. So really completely locked down. But what OctoPrint doesn't control, like the webcam stream, it can't limit access to. It can just not display it, but not just displaying it is not proper access control in that case. It's just not displaying it. It's still there, it's just not visible. So if someone knows the URL, and since they are identical for every single Octopi installed out there, it would be trivial to just attach webcam slash question marks action equals stream to that, then they still can see this. So just keep that in mind. Anyhow, this is what I wanted to show you. And now back to me. Hi. And I hope this answers the question, and I also hope that this was interesting to people here, everyone here. Oh, I can't talk today. And now I have to quickly take a look into the live chat because something happened. What is the time frame for the release of 1.4.0? Yeah, so I don't have one yet. The problem is that basically the past year I've tried to find time left and right to work on it, and every time that I started on it, I I had to basically how do you say? I had to put out a fire somewhere, and maintenance and all that, support overhead and all that. It basically ate way too much time. But what I don't know if you saw, I think it was my last or my second to last OctoPrint On Air episode where I explained that I've switched to basically a timetable-based approach to working again, and this has helped a lot in getting some room to breathe, so to speak, or rather room to develop again. And so this is moving forward, and I just can't tell you yet when it will be ready because it depends on too many factors, especially stuff like how much maintenance work, how much maintenance overhead is going to be there. So, for example, originally I did not want to release 1.3.6 before the holidays. But then I found this security vulnerability, and so I basically scrapped everything with regards to development work and got onto that and tried to push it out before Christmas with enough buffer space until the end of year, so that if push had come to shove and there had been a crippling bug in this release, I would have still be able to fix this as well. And when stuff like this happens, it of course takes precedence, and this makes it always a bit tricky to plan. I certainly don't hope that I will have a repetition of something as let's say as fear-inducing as this vulnerability discovery on my part, but Let me say it this way: the more of you that help with support, the more time I have for development. And the same goes for bug fixes, for maintenance and all that, because right now it's always a bit like trying to juggle way too many boards at the same time. But I have my timetable, and I hope this will help. Okay. So, next question by Sebastian. I'm confused by some inner workings of OctoPrint. If I understand well, it uses both Tornado and Flask. Can you explain a little why, which parts of OctoPrint are using what, and the limitations you have to struggle with because of this double personae, blocking versus non-blocking etc. So first of all, to anyone who doesn't understand a bit what we are talking about here, OctoPrint internally uses two web frameworks, basically. One is Tornado, which is an asynchronous web server, I think, built by, was it Facebook? Something like that. Some big company, basically open source in Python. Really nice, asynchronous, single-threaded, high performance. And this is the main web server. And the other bit is a Flask web application, which is basically OctoPrint's whole API, and also this is also what delivers the static components of the web front end, and also the it takes also care of rendering the HTML for the single page, basically for the UI. The UI is a single HTML page, and that gets built together from everything that plugins provide and also which the core application provides. And this is also something that this Flask bit is taking care of. And Flask runs basically as a WSGI application inside Tornado. So you have Tornado, on the edge of the application, so to speak, you have Tornado, and behind that you have also Flask and a bunch of other stuff. And if a request comes in for example, fetch the file list or something, it first goes to Tornado. Tornado sees, I don't have a special route for that, so this is probably designated for the Flask application that is running within me, and then it gives this to the Flask application. The Flask application calculates this stuff and then returns the result through Tornado to the client. The nice thing, as I said, about Tornado is that it's asynchronous, so it basically the thing is that it doesn't do request comes in, it's busy and then sends out a response, but request comes in, it's busy a bit, then everything else can also do other requests and stuff like that can be handled, but it is busy with something where it can't produce any response anyhow, and then once it's done, then it will say, hi, I now have a response to send, and then it can actually send it out, roughly. I mean, this was a very, the problem with Flask, or rather with WSGI, which is how Flask is integrated into Tornado here, is that this is synchronous. So it's always a thing of request comes in, gets processed, gets out again in the same thread. So you don't have anything like request gets in, stuff gets put to sleep, and some other request gets handled, and again, not the same asynchronous approach as Tornado. So and what also is what is also encapsulated by Tornado in OctoPrint is the bit that handles the WebSocket, and this is also why there is a Tornado server in place in OctoPrint in the first place, because initially at the very beginning, back in 2012, when I started working on OctoPrint, I only had it built as a Flask application running on its own debug server. And then I wanted to add WebSocket support because all this polling from the front end to the back end was simply not performant enough and was also putting a bit too much strain on the server for my taste. So I looked into WebSockets. WebSockets need asynchronous servers to work, and so I looked for some solution for that, and I stumbled over Tornado and also a WebSocket implementation, or rather WebSocket protocol implementation on top of Tornado for Socket.io. So I simply took that and Tornado and integrated my Flask application into that, and then we had suddenly this multi-tiered approach was born. And I just switched out Socket.io for Sock.js and also added some download and upload streaming to Tornado, because this was also a problem with just Flask. If you upload something like a 500 megabyte G-code file to a regular WSGI application, it will first have to fetch the whole request into memory. And considering that a Raspberry Pi B only has 512, or only had 512, this was the first generation, 512 megabytes of memory at that time, you can imagine that this was not a good approach. So what I did was, and what is working to how uploads and also downloads are working to this day, is that they are instead handled by Tornado, and uploads first go to Tornado. Tornado sees, oh, it's a file upload, streams the file to disk, and then Flask only sees a rewritten request where it gets told, by the way, this was a file upload and you can find the file in the temporary directory here. It had this size and this name. And this solved a nice problem. But the problem that I can't solve, and this is actually a huge problem with this approach, is that as I mentioned, Tornado is single-threaded and WSGI is synchronous. And this leads to the situation that if you make an API call, Tornado can only ever or rather the OctoPrint server can only ever handle one API call at a time. So if you fetch the file list and this takes a long time, while it is fetching the file list, it can't do anything else. So if while it is fetching this file list and someone else tries to, for example, open the homepage and just load the web interface, then it will stall until the file list from the other thing is done, and then it will be able to handle your request. And this is a bit annoying, and actually an architectural oversight that I want to correct. See to the question of John with regards to things that really annoy me and things that I want to fix, because where I have this urge to rip everything out and write again. But well, we can't always do what we want. I'm thinking about moving the OctoPrint API and also the static file delivery and all that over to Tornado, though, for getting around this. And leaving Flask in there still for staying backwards compatible with the plugins. But this is something that I don't know when I will be able to get around this. I would just love to say now that will be in 1.4.0, but I can't. I don't know if I will actually be able to do that, because I would basically have to rewrite the whole API in Tornado, which I mean, most of the code I could probably reuse, but still, it would be some work. It would be a huge, huge amount of work. But it would solve a huge problem with the current architecture. Because, and this is actually a huge problem thanks to this combination, there are sometimes plugins whose authors do not know this, which I completely understand. I mean, it's you really have to dig into OctoPrint's internals to know about this situation. And maybe I should communicate this a bit better, apart from this broadcast now. But if you, for example, have a plugin that does some really long-running request on some interface, then people having this plugin installed will run into issues. So for example, we had this, I can't remember which plugin it was, but there was one plugin where if you fetched its data, and this was something that was done when you were logged in and opening the OctoPrint page, then a GET request would be sent to this plugin, and then a lot of data would first have to be calculated and then be returned. And during this time, the page would not continue to load, and because no requests from the server, no other requests from the server could be served, and this was not so ideal. So, as I said, solving this problem would certainly also help with a lot with problems like these. Yeah. But as I said, future music, I don't know when I will get around to it. It's just an idea that I have to solve this. Okay, so next question by Chris. The new Discourse forum looks pretty good. Thank you. Will you start phasing out the mailing list in G+ forums to get all the support channels in one location? So that's actually the whole plan. I already have pinned announcements to both the G+ community and also the mailing list that I'm basically going to set them to read only soon. I'm not entirely sure when yet. Maybe next, maybe the week after. But rather soon, actually, because I really want to prevent people now trying to get help in 3 different locations instead of 2. And actually, when my goal is just 1. So, if you haven't noticed, I really feel a real need to consolidate things and reduce overhead. Yeah. Okay. Next question by Paul. Would a useful interim compromise for webcam integration be to add an option to allow either a stream URL as now, which expects something that can be put in an image tag, usually mJPEG stream, or a new option to select a URL to be embedded as an iframe in exactly the same area and size? This would allow anyone to do whatever they want inside that area by creating their own web page, which does it, e.g. multiplayer cameras, switching cameras, etc. It also means the user would need to learn how to write OctoPrint plugins to use it. So first of all, maybe to quickly help with the context of this question, a lot of people keep asking about allowing something like multiple webcams or webcams that aren't streaming MJPEG but MPEG-4 or something like that, H.264, and I always have to say that sorry, I can't find time for this right now. And I've also in the past said that it would be awesome if someone maybe would look into a plugin for multiple camera support at least. And so Paul is suggesting here to at least add the option to not only embed a webcam stream in an image tag in form of an MJPEG stream, but also offer the option to just basically have a toggle in the settings where instead you do not paste an MJPEG stream URL, but instead paste some URL that will directly be embedded into an iframe in the space where the webcam is usually located. And I have to say that this is a very interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that yet, and it definitely might be worth a try. The only downside, of course, is that the user would need to learn HTML. Or rather, people who want to actually utilize this would need to learn HTML and find some place to host the page on. And of course, they could always just host it as part of an OctoPrint plugin, but then they still would need to learn to write an OctoPrint plugin. But yeah, still, it's definitely an interesting option. I've also thought about just allowing at least, right now we have only the image tag and only the MJPEG stream. I thought about adding a toggle to allow instead an H.264 stream, because this is natively supported in a browser in a modern browser through the video tag HTML5, and yeah, this would also would be hopefully fairly straightforward. So I could see if I can do that and HTML, add an iframe option, or maybe just the iframe options or something like that in the very near future. It would be great if someone could open, maybe you, Paul, could open a feature request for that, because probably otherwise I would forget it until Monday. I will try not to, though. Yeah, and by the way, while we are talking about webcams and all that, I have to admit I'm a tiny bit disappointed that so far no one has stepped up to try their hand at a multi-webcam plugin. Considering how often this is asked for, it would be such a low-hanging fruit for someone who wants to become a hero overnight. Just saying. Okay, now considering the time, this might be the last question that we have time for, by Chris. Since you've worked at a conventional job and are now full-time on OctoPrint, how would you say the two compare? I could see the OctoPrint work would fall somewhere between self-employed and having 1,000 plus bosses. You have no idea how good this description fits my feeling. Because yeah, this is actually exactly like it feels. So on the one hand, I'm self-employed. I have basically the risks of being self-employed, and on the other hand, it always feels like I have over 1,000, maybe basically thousands of people with their expectations in my direction, and also a bit of pressure here and there to do certain things. And yeah, this is a bit of a tricky situation, I have to admit. So it always also feels a bit like being between a whole lot of chairs, because of course huge parts of these 1,000 plus bosses want one thing while the others want another thing, and those two things don't necessarily have to be able to coexist at the same time. So this makes things tricky here and there. And I have to say, though, that it is a huge improvement over the situation I found myself in before, where I was where I basically was employed by a company, but working full-time on OctoPrint. And now I always found myself in this stupid situation with the 2 chairs where when they actually did have some kind of task for me, like help, consulting or something like that with regards to firmware development and such, that I found myself in the situation. So now, how much time do I now give my actual employer who's paying my salary, versus how much time do I give those demands and requests and needs of the thousands of people who are actually using the product actively that I'm developing here? So this was always tricky. Of course, in the end, the boss in this scenario always won, but it always felt wrong no matter what I did. So this certainly has become better now. But yeah, I would be lying if I didn't admit that it feels extremely stressful and scary sometimes, this whole situation really. I just try to do my best, not overdo it in the process. And yes, this part is the real challenge here for me, and hope that everything that I do is enough. And so far, I seem to be able to cope and wing it sufficiently. But if some request goes unanswered, or I may seem a bit hard to reach sometimes or something like that, then this is simply because I'm juggling too many balls at the same time. Yeah, due to this situation, this whole self-employed but crowd-funded situation, which is still completely hard to believe myself. But thank you anyhow for everyone who helps me doing this. A huge thank you, and I'm really, really grateful. It's just sometimes really weird. So I really find myself waking up some days and thinking, how did I end up in this situation? I only wanted to be able to put my printer in the spare bathroom. It's not like I planned any of this. Okay. I hope this answers this question. So let me just quickly check in the live chat if there is something that I missed. Oh, this is a nice suggestion by SA Error 1. A nice feature for multi-user setups might be a system where a privileged user can set the printer ready, not ready, and a less privileged user can only use a ready printer. This is interesting. I actually was looking into allowing plugins to override certain buttons on the UI, because we also have the situation right now that it is possible to click the print button while an update is ongoing. If you're not an admin, you don't necessarily have the blocking dialog during an update, so this might happen. But since the software update is a plugin, I was looking into that, and this would also allow stuff like this maybe, but not right now. But yeah, it could be done maybe. Can you write a feature request for this, please, so it doesn't get forgotten? Yeah. And another idea, a super far-fetched dream by SA Error 1. A super far-fetched dream feature would be to use machine vision to detect a clear or busy build plate. I think there is even already a feature request about using machine learning and machine vision for detecting prints that go wrong. And I remember someone chiming in there with some experience in this subject matter, saying that it would be tricky at a minimum because it's hard to determine what is actually a failed print job visually and not for a computer. But differentiating between a clear and a not clear build plate might actually be something that might be fairly easy. I don't know. I have to admit I have next to no experience in machine learning and machine vision. The last time that I looked into stuff like that was back in university, and this is all more over 10 years ago now. So I don't, and it didn't go into much depth back then. It was only like an introductory course on things like this. So I need some input from more knowledgeable people on these matters to be able to comment on. But in principle, I'm always happy to make it possible, so to speak, for plugins and such. I don't know I don't actually want to build too much things like this into the core. My goal is actually to move more and more out of the core and into bundled plugins to make everything easier to maintain and less error prone. Anyhow, I think that was all. Okay, yep. And so now we can go to a wrap up about the next hangout, the next broadcast. So basically it would be in 4 weeks' time. The thing is that I got a family situation coming up that will prevent me to do this in 4 weeks because I will be traveling to another city and stuff like that. And I don't even know how good the internet connection will be there because I will be staying in a hotel, and you know how it is sometimes with hotel Wi-Fi. So I will try to see if I can make the final weekend of April, but that depends a bit on things and how this family situation evolves. Basically, it's a surgery of someone very important to me that's coming up, and it depends a bit on how this works out. So I can't promise anything right now. I will see then. So I will hopefully be able to know a week before or something. In any case, I will definitely keep you posted on Patreon when the next installment will be, and with the usual announcement and all that. And until then, please send in more questions over the form linked in on Patreon, and so that we actually have something in the Q&A section to talk about next time. Okay. With that being said, I guess that's all. I hope you have a nice rest of Saturday. Depending on where you are, that will be more or a larger part or a smaller part of Saturday. And I also learned earlier from Ewald in the live chat that apparently today is St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone who celebrates that. And in this, with that, I guess it's just time to say thank you for watching, and I hope I see you next time. And until then, happy printing. Bye.